All right, cool. What's up, everyone? Coach Braydon here with Look Like You Lift and the Look Like You Lift 15 podcast, where we're going to teach you how to look like you lift in 15 minutes. So in this video, hang on, let me just adjust. There we go. All right, we're good. I'm trying out a new camera setup, so it might take some fidgeting here and there. So in this episode, I wanted to talk about how to mentally prepare for a diet, because I think in the dieting realm right now, we've oversimplified it down to just numbers, but we as humans are not numbers. We are much more than that. And if it really was as easy as just, following your macros and following your calories, it wouldn't be so hard to lose weight. Yet every single time that you've tried dieting, you've probably run into the issue of dealing with cravings, dealing with binging. You probably developed like a bad eating disorder. Your relationship with food tanks, and then what you end up with is not making any progress. And then you quit the diet, and then you go back to where you started, or maybe even worse than when you started. And that's not what I want for you. And it's no fault of your own. It's no fault of the diet either. It's your mental preparation when going into a diet that I think is not talked about enough. So that's what I wanted to go over with today. But real quick, a quick story for you, kind of explaining where I want to go with this. So at the beginning of this year, I went through a cut to get ready for a photo shoot, and I looked really damn good. I'm not going to lie to you, but I looked pretty good. And, I got some great photos, looked really lean, and it turned out great, but the aftermath was not so great. I went into a binging frenzy for a very, very long time and ended up gaining all of my weight back and then some. And then on top of that, I ran into some health problems. I ran into edema, which is not very good for your body. I ran into heart issues, and I ran into some real mental screw ups because of that binging episode. And the binge happened because going into that diet, going into that preparation for that photo shoot, I was not prepared. I was not mentally prepared for the 16 weeks that I was going to be dieting. So that's what I want to talk. So now that's over. I'm currently cutting again. I'm basically going through a cleanup phase, a cleaning up of what happened to me when I binged my heart out for a long time. So I'm down. This morning I'm down 13 pounds. I feel great. And in fact, this journey is significantly easier than the last time. And it's because I spent a lot of time actually preparing myself mentally before going back into another diet. And I want to help you with that today. So first things first, when it comes to a diet, when it comes to actually making the goal to lose weight and shred the fat off, a lot of people don't need to worry about calories just yet. They don't need to worry about their macros. They don't need to go get a calorie calculator. They don't even need to start a diet yet. What I suggest you do is just start focusing on the minimal effective dose. What is the smallest change that I can make in my habits that are going to yield the greatest results right off the bat? Okay, so Look Like You Lift is built around minimal effective dosage. We don't want to just completely throw the kitchen sink at your diet and completely change everything all at once. We want to change one little thing at a time to yield the most results, and that's the long-term solution to this. So what I would encourage you to do is take an inventory of what are your eating habits right now. What are your drinking habits right now? Do you find yourself eating when you're stressed? Do you find yourself eating really late at night? So take an inventory of what you're eating and what your activity looks like. So activity, are you walking regularly, or are you pretty sedentary all day long? Are you already working out at the gym, or are you not working out at all? Once we have an inventory, and once we can write all that stuff down, we can then take a pretty good look of, all right, what's the one change that I can implement right now that's going to yield the most progress? So if you're having a Ben & Jerry's every single night, I wouldn't put you on a diet just yet. I would just encourage you to go from, instead of having a Ben & Jerry's every single night, to just having a Ben & Jerry's 3 times a week. And then cutting that down to Ben & Jerry's 1 time a week. If you find yourself drinking a 6-pack of beer every single night, let's cut that down to drinking a 6-pack once a week, So just making those small corrections you're going to see progress right off the bat because we're making a small dietary change. It's not going to feel like you're dieting because it's just a small restriction, just a small change. And you'd be surprised how just that one change will make incredible progress. And we haven't even gotten to the realm of of putting you on a meal plan yet. And I see this a lot. So I brought up the Ben & Jerry's because I had a guy come in. He was a competitive powerlifter and he weighed 240 pounds and he wanted to lose weight because he wanted to compete at a lower weight class. And, he was asking me, all right, what meal plan should I get on? What should my diet look like? What are my macros? And we did the same thing. We took an inventory list and he was having a Ben & Jerry's every single night. And I said, okay, man, well, let's just start with cutting out the Ben & Jerry's. And he lost like 20 pounds in like 2 months without even having to change anything in his diet. And then after that, we were able to make additional changes and slowly get him into a meal plan that he could realistically stick to. So we've taken an inventory on our eating. We've taken an inventory of what are the small changes that we can implement right away that are going to yield the biggest results. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I want to make sure that your relationship with your food is a healthy relationship before we start dieting. Because if you have a bad relationship with food and we try getting you to hop onto a diet, it is not going to go well. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be thinking about food all day long. Food is going to be on your mind. You won't be able to focus. You won't be able to pay attention. It's going to be a nightmare. So before we can take additional steps into building out a meal plan or building out a diet for you, let's work on your relationship with food. And honestly, the best way to start with that is understanding that there's no such thing as good foods and bad foods. There's just food, okay? Cheeseburgers aren't bad. Ice cream isn't bad. Apples aren't good. Freaking whole grain organic bread isn't good. It's all just food. Now, there are foods that will make your progress easier and then foods that will make your progress more difficult than it needs to be. So for example, if we were to look at like a pizza, like if you had a pizza every single day, that's going to make your journey more difficult than it needs to be. But if we can fill you up on, salads and steak and home cooked meals, it's going to make your journey a little bit easier, right? So we first need to cut out the BS of good foods and bad foods. There's just food. And that puts you in control that I can really eat whatever I want. I just choose to not eat these different foods because I don't want to. It's going to make my journey more difficult. That was a huge mental shift for me. So the past couple cuts, it always revolved around, okay, I can't have these foods. I can't have a donut. I can't have a milkshake, right? Like I can't have these because it's not in the meal plan. And all that did was it circulated this. When you think about something that's not good for you or something that you can't have, that's the only thing that you think about, right? They do this all the time in psychology. Don't think about a pink elephant. Whatever you do, do not think about a pink elephant. Well, you're probably thinking about a pink elephant right now, right? It's the same kind of thing. So this diet that I'm on right now, it's more flexible. Well, before actually starting the diet, I went a month where all food was fine. I could eat whatever I want, but it was my choice what I put in my mouth. Ideally, it wasn't the most optimal. Ideally, I wasn't going to be losing weight on that, but it really helped to heal my relationship with my food. And then when I moved into a diet, I still told myself, look, these foods are fine. We're not taking these foods out. You can still have them whenever you want. You just have to be under the expectation that these foods may make your progress slower. And that happened the other week. One of my cravings was just kind of getting a little out of control, a little crazy. And I said, all right, I'm going to get myself a thing of ice cream. I'm allowing that to happen, and I accept the consequences of my progress being slower than necessary. I got it. I ate it. And after I finished it, I wasn't satisfied. It wasn't as sexy or as enticing as the craving led it up to be. So I indulged in it, because I gave my permission to do so, I accepted the consequences of my progress being slower, and I ended up not really enjoying it that much at all. And so after that experience, I have a craving coming up here and there, but then I just reflect back to how I felt the last time of, it really wasn't that great. I kind of relate it back to, this might take a dark turn, but I kind of relate it back to if you're in a committed relationship and like you find another woman that all you can think about is this other woman, and then you finally sleep with that other woman. Was it worth it? Probably not, right? You probably felt pretty bad about it, and now you have a whole mess that you need to clean up with your current lady that you're with right now, right? So it's a mess. So it's that same kind of thing of, the enticing, the anticipation of the food or the addiction that you may have, and actually performing it and actually doing it is not always what it's cracked up to be. And that was a huge mental shift for me, is like, as soon as I gave myself permission to eat whatever I wanted, it really wasn't that big a deal. So that's what I want you to work on next, is fixing your relationship with food, understanding that there's no such thing as good or bad foods, and then accepting the responsibility that whatever you do eat is your choice, and you're going to have to accept the consequences of whatever you put in your mouth. Okay. So once we've been able to hop on this minimal effective dose approach of eating and activity, next we can, and then once we fixed our relationship with how we view our food and how we eat, the next thing is we can start looking into building out a structured meal plan. Now, this is going to, again, look a lot different from person to person. A lot of people, so like people who come into my program, we don't necessarily start them with calories and macros. We start them with just guidelines of what you should be eating every day. You should have 3 to 4 square meals a day, no snacking. Each meal should have a specific ratio of food, with meat and veg and carbs, and that works fantastic. And then we slowly start to get them in the habit of tracking their food, tracking their calories, then tracking their macros. And then once we have an understanding there, still making sure that their relationship with food is good, we're handling cravings accordingly, we're not restricting food like crazy, then we can safely start to approach a calorie-based approach, a macro-based approach. And this might actually take you 6 months to a year before we actually do this. But that 6 months to a year may not even feel like dieting, and you may have lost 30, 40, 50 pounds by the point that we even need to start tracking calories or macros. Okay? But everybody thinks that they need to jump right into tracking calories and macros. They can't do it because it's overwhelming and restrictive. And then they binge, and then they go back to where they started. So this is how we mentally prepare for a diet, is making sure that the relationship with food is good. Fixing our daily habits first. And then once all of that stuff is done, we have good habits in place. We're not eating out all the time. We're cooking our food. We're not binging and dealing with cravings unhealthily. Then we can start making progress into actually tracking and monitoring. So, the exact steps that I just gave you the steps that I just gave you are the exact steps that my clients implement as soon as they come into the program. People come in from all different walks of life. I've got people who come in who always track their macros, to people who don't even know what a macro is. But this is how they all start, is we just start with, the first 10 to 12 weeks, just trying to find out what's the smallest thing that we can change that's going to yield the most results. And then we slowly get them ready into more advanced ways of dieting. But a lot of people try to hop into the advanced stuff when they really don't need it. The same kind of thing with strength training. Our strength training programs are very, very simple, but they're very, very effective. Yet people think that they need to take a percentage-based approach. They think they need to jump into conjugate training, or they think they need to do like a 6-day split, when all they need is like 3 days in basic movements, right? It's the same kind of thing with nutrition. So I hope this video was informative. If you liked this episode, feel free to leave a like or a comment, share with your friends. We appreciate any and all support. And if you have any questions, I'd love to hear what questions you have for ideas for following episodes. And I'm filming this on a Saturday, so if you're watching this on a Saturday, have a great weekend, have a great week. Thank you for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Talk soon.